It's always great to be here at the satellite campus in St. John's. It's nice to see how you're doing well, you know. I mean, we're a bit worried about you sometimes. We hear about, you know, you complaining about resources and so on. So I'm glad that you got the heat on again, and the lights are working, and everything, so it's a pleasure. I'd like to address two general themes today, and research as a relationship, which was mentioned earlier this morning, but also the notion of the embedded academic. And I know the topic of the session is on communication. And of course, we really have to have something to communicate, or we have to have some sort of relationship to make that communication happen. And really, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out if I was from the inside out or from the outside in. Because I live in a community where I do research. I'm a resident of that community as much as anybody else. I also happen to work at the university and do research. So I'm in both inside and outside. So I'm confused. And so I decided I'll talk about research as a relationship and the embedded academic, embedding in the academic in a community. And you'll notice that I'm freed from the constraints of a PowerPoint. PowerPoints are so 2012. And they're really only reserved for people who have thought in advance, days in advance, of what they're going to say. So the advantage is, you know, having a deadline of yesterday to have your PowerPoint in means that I don't have any. But that way, we have to make eye contact. So anyway, apparently what I do is I ramble on for a while, and then Christine sets me straight. So that sounds good to me. But first of all, research is a relationship. And I want to explore the implications of that metaphor, because people talk about a relationship sometimes. Like doing research together, communities and universities, is creating a relationship. And sometimes these can be healthy, and sometimes they can be unhealthy. And even if they're unhealthy, they continue for periods of time because people stay in unhealthy relationships for other reasons. Sometimes research collaborations don't work, and they split up. Now, how they begin also influences how they probably go on. So some of these relationships, I think, are arranged marriages. And if that's what you're looking for and that's what your cultural expectations are, it might work. But sometimes they aren't. At one point, I suggested to Colleen that she and I should just role play different kinds of relationships. And she could be the university and I'd be the community. And we'd role play like a codependent relationship. And you know, how we sort of help each other to maintain our own dysfunctions. Or maybe an overly demanding relationship, you know, like, where are my survey results? You knew I needed them by Monday's meeting, you know, that sort of thing, because you know, sometimes universities come in and do that in communities as well. Or we could role play a relationship with a decidedly low intensity, you know, where the partners don't really engage each other very much, and they don't really trust each other, but they stay at the dance, you know, they have the ring, but they don't sing, and all those sorts of suppressions. But that would have tested my acting skills. I don't know about you, so we aren't going to role play those. And sometimes relationships need counseling. I don't know, like, where the Dr. Phil of university community relationship dysfunctions is. You know, like, who would we go to when we have problems? When communities and universities don't work well together, I'm not sure who we go to. Can we go to you, Rob? That's the new Office of Public Engagement. You're the Dr. Phil. The Dr. Phil. Okay, the Dr. Phil of engagement, ladies and gentlemen. I like that. Yeah. You kind of have the look there, that intensity. You know, you actually look like you're concerned about what people are saying sometimes. You know, so I love that. Yeah. Now another part of yes.
I'm an NGO leader. I want to be in on this.
Okay, you can be.
It's all very well to have it coming from the inside out.
You could be the Linda. What is that woman on the radio who does counseling for people on? No, not the. Well, sure, Linda Swain. Why not? You're the Linda Swain of community university, whoever that is. I'm an academic. You know, I listen to CBC all the time. So. Now, sometimes another part of the dynamic of relationships is that sometimes in a relationship, the one person who is the least invested has the most power, because they feel like they have options, they can leave, they don't have to be there. And in a university-community relationship, sometimes you wonder which partner has the most power. Is it the university? And I think a lot of times it does, because we can say to a community, well, I'll go somewhere else. You don't want to work with me in Rocky Harbor? I'll go to Cowhead. You know? Whereas communities don't necessarily say, oh, I don't want to work with you, I'm going to work with another university, because you know, we just have the one university here, pretty much. So sometimes in a real-life relationship, the dynamics of power mean that people with little power end up having to be more invested in it, or having to stay with the relationship. And relationships are very awkward too, and at the beginning, you know, who asks who to dance? So if you have a university and you have a community, you know, and you're at the dance, and the university says, can I have this dance? And the community says, well, you're not from around here, are you? Well, no, but I'm here now, aren't I? You know, and the community says, well, you'll just leave soon and go back home. How can I trust you? You know, so the relationships are awkward to get started, and you have to be able to trust. And so sometimes the long-term relationships I've been in with communities have been long-term. It takes a long time for people to trust. And sometimes they don't always work, too. I mean, we have this dogged determination that once somebody is on a partnership list for a SSHRC grant, they stay there, even though it doesn't really mean anything. And this sort of brings me to the second point about the idea of the embedded academic. It's a term that was given to me by a community member, by Joni Cranston from Norris Point. But if I rush and publish it quickly, I can claim it as my own. So we're racing, Joni and I. No, I wouldn't do that. But like the journalists, you remember the journalists who were embedded, you know, in Afghanistan and so on, in military units. Sometimes academics can become embedded in communities too. And it allows them to see the everyday life and the everyday full range of activities differently, to appreciate the challenges, you know, shed some light on the limitations of separation. Like sometimes we separate ourselves from communities because we say we have to be objective. So I can't get too close, can't go native, you know. And so sometimes by being embedded, it gets around that whole, I think it's a real handicap that we have sometimes, this notion of objectivity. Of course, we could have a whole debate about that. But embeddedness, if I can use such a word, I don't know if it exists, but it's worth 17 points in Scrabble, I understand. But embeddedness can help us build trust and communication, and even a sense of mutual benefit. And a good relationship involves some sort of equal exchange. But you know, how do we in the university get embedded in the community? Don't worry, I'm not going to go anywhere with the metaphor, the bad thing. You know, don't worry, that's not anywhere. But I've been fortunate to be a member of a number of groups that have sort of modeled this, and I think the model of the embedded academic and the positive relationship. And one of them, which is in the region near where I am and where Colleen works, is Community University for Research for Alliance, Research for Recovery Alliance, Secura, which Barb Neese spearheaded. And that's based in Bombay. I think of it as a Bombay project, even though a lot of the researchers come from elsewhere. But it's meant that researchers have been embedded within those communities for longer than they really expected to be there, in a positive way. But it's an example of what can happen when academics are embedded. And part of why it happened that way is it's based in Bombay. It's there. It's physically present. I mean, for people who live in the margins, while we love to come to St. John's to shop, there's a real, no, we don't really. Are you shopping? Are you going to Costco? I can't even get into Costco. They won't let me in. You have to have a membership card. I sneak in with a family, like this family. I walk beside them, and the security guard says, no, you're not with them. You know, are you with them? Like, it's easier to get through the airport here than to get into Costco, I tell you.
But I'll share my card with you.
Will you?
Price.
Oh, I'm in the city now. That's right. No, but being physically present, I think, is really important, because we're always at the other end of the line. You know, teleconferences where you're the one person and everybody else is somewhere else. We were talking about this morning at breakfast with friends from Labrador, and I think if we're all going to be on a teleconference, we should all be on our own phones in our own offices alone. Not 6 or 7 people in one room in one campus, and one person in another campus, and one person in another campus. That's not fair. And what that means to somebody who's at the other campus is you're not really present with me. You're not really, I'm included as a token of this. And so in terms of the Cura project being focused in Bombay, I think that meant a lot, hopefully it meant a lot to people who were there, is that this is where we meet. This is where we have our conferences. This is where the focus of our research is. And while we might live somewhere else, that's where we do it. And I think that was a really strong message. The other group that I was part of for a while was the New Rural Economy for many years, and it was academics from BC to Newfoundland, Labrador. And all of the meetings were held in rural communities. And while that was a challenge, because some people complained about the lodging and they couldn't find, you know, good places to stay and so on, it spoke to the people in those communities. These were communities that we were doing research in. There were 32 randomly selected from across the country. And so we were there, we were present. We met with the local people. We were there for years and years, you know. And so I think that was a very strong message. And frankly, I'd much rather meet in a Lions Club or a church hall than a hotel or a university campus, however well bestowed you have your, lights everywhere. But I think just the sense of being there, being embedded, at least for those periods of time, was significant. So, now finally, it's important to remember that it takes two to tango. Well, actually, I've taken tango lessons. It takes far more than two. It takes about a dozen patient teachers in 2 years. But anyway, you get my point. The two groups, universities and communities, can be equally adept at sometimes playing head games with each other. I think either side can lie about their motivation. The pendulum swings back and forth, and we may be at a place at the moment where in some circles, communities are always right and universities are always wrong. Where all the calls for sensitivity and awareness and compromise are focused on the academics. Now, I think obviously we deserve to be chastened from time to time, but part of a healthy relationship, a healthy balance, is understanding each other's own unique context and needs and requirements and demands, and finding a path that kind of respects that or sort of finds a middle way. So I'm happy to be embedded in communities, in relationship with some communities. There's really a value in being asked to be involved in community projects and in suggesting ways that communities can be involved in university projects too, which is a little less likely to happen sometimes. But I think that we need more opportunities for young academics to learn the value and the richness of being in a relationship and being embedded in communities. So that's just a little bit of my experience. So how did I go wrong? Anyway, thanks.
I'm not as entertaining as my co-presenter, but he talked about relationships, and I'm going to talk about engagements and encounters. And for most communities, it's more about encounters than engagement when they come across the university. It's, somebody's coming through town as a grad student, they want to do research or they're studying a topic that's of interest to certain members of the town. They take the time to participate, and that's it. It goes in some type of vortex. Nobody shares any information back and forth. And a lot of communities, I don't think, really know how to connect. We don't know what the opportunities are. But I've also had the good fortune to be a part of an engagement relationship with the university. And that started, and I have our champion here, Bob Hooper. In 2002, Gros Morne National Park was finally doing the last part of their agreement for the federal provincial agreement, and was building this big interpretation center, and said, okay, we're going to tell the terrestrial side, who's going to tell the ocean side? And at that point, the university had 2 salt box houses in North Point with a shed on the waterfront, probably 55-gallon buckets, and was telling the marine story out of the shed for about 10 years, and about 10,000 people going through. So we said, the expertise, the program is there, they just need a place to present from. So we started working with the university, access funding to build about a $3 million marine station, and that was the beginning of our relationship. We then moved on to, programs from April to September, but then we had a public program, and we're in a national park where we have 180,000 visitors coming through. And it was a great place for Memorial to sort of present themselves and who they are in a very professional way. So that relationship in 2004, we end up with a beautiful marine station. It takes in about 30 for, we have accommodations that can, I think it's 30, Bob? Yeah, it's about 30. Plus, some of the community responds to students staying in, and they take in boarders and they rent other places. Their families come to visit. So for us, it's been a real great opportunity to engage the public in, our one learning institute and university in the province, and also have a top quality program that we're offering back to the public. So that's that part of it. We also advertise and market Gros Morne in a big, big way, and I don't know if the university markets in a big, big way, but as we market the university. So you're looking at the advantages for us. For us as a community, we have a world-class research center with some top researchers coming to our area, students coming to look at our area, their families coming, so you can see the benefits for the community. You're sitting back, you're thinking, well, what's the benefits? Because a partnership has got to be 2 ways. What's the benefits for the university? Well, the university used public funds, not their own budget, to build a center, and they used community partners to access the funding for the research. So it didn't come out of existing budgets. So that's one thing. Secondly, I'm sure they spend a whole lot of money recruitment and going all over the world telling them the story of Memorial University, what it has to offer. We tell the story right there. They're coming to us. We're not flying all over the globe, you know. So we have a chance to talk about the university and who the university are to about 180,000 people on an annual basis. And we don't have a repeat clientele. So for us, you know, we can see the benefits of both sides. The research. I think the research is something that has been a challenge for a lot of communities. Now I work in Labrador, I work in Nain, and right through our fuel unit from Gros Morne to Labrador, and I mean, Gordon's here and he's got that Labrador. We see the opportunities of connecting to the research, but our past experiences are grad students who are coming out doing their piece of business. We're assisting in doing, and we've never been able to use it as a tool to help us move forward. So we have to learn, I think, a part of this, you know, engagement piece and where we are now and where we're moving forward. In order to dance, you know, on your dance card, I think you need a manual of how you can help. We don't know how to connect. Now, YAFL is there right now. I mean, the ARA Centers produce YAFL. It's a great tool to go out and say, you know, here's the types of research you can connect to. But I think we have to go a step beyond that. We have to sort of look at what types of research we're doing. We now have a new R&D plan. So we have to look at the types of research we're doing and how we can assist communities in moving forward. I mean, it's been the goal since 1949. I think we've been passive in some ways. And I do think the communities are in a position right now where they're going to need the university more and more. They pay for consultants. We pay for consultants all the time to come in and draw on your research in most cases and write a report around it. 3 years ago, we sort of checked and we had to do a professional plan on writers at Whitty Point. And we said we're using a consulting company who's using the same information from past reports that we've used, and we said, you know, this is not current. We want somebody to take the time to go deeper. So we started to do a relationship with Grenfell and Cornerbrook with their entrepreneur and business class. And we said, no, why don't you guys, your class, take this? We'll pay. We pay a consultant. We will pay. We work with Ivan in doing this. We will pay the same thing we will pay a consultant to do a business plan and a framework around this festival. And they did it, and we got a great report. It was a lot more effort than we probably would have got from, you know, if we stepped outside at that particular time. And I think the community was well engaged. Jose Lam was the prof that was sort of overseeing it. He spent a lot of time in town, a lot of relationship building. So it's not somebody who comes in and sees you once a year or just touches your life once and walks away with information that they don't share with you. I don't think that's engagement. It's an encounter. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's not. But engagement takes a lot more. I mean, fisheries is another a controversial area when you get the industry to the science. I mean, I think Cura was a way of closing some of that gap. It was connecting the industry directly to the researchers, and it was huge for the fishery people to understand that their input and understanding where the researchers got their information and what they're seeing on the ground, which they thought was totally different, and how to connect that resource. So I think it's the connectivity and making sure we continue with the relationship. We also had the luxury of having somebody on the ground working with Kira full time, Anita Best, and she connected to the industry. She made sure that the university and the university's science was connected to the industry, and she brought the industry together at least 3 to 4 times a year to talk about them. So there was a continued dialogue. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that I can add to the conversation, but I think it's important that we don't confuse really how we engage and connect. So.